everyone. It's so great to see you all and be here. And I know we just got a little bit of a late start due to some internet problems that I'm having. So we'll just bear with me. And we are on our way. Let me just fix this. So I'm sorry about the movement here, but I think you can see me well, right?
Very well.
Okay, great. So this has been some week, right? For all of us. And I thought it would be a great topic to talk about coping, because here in New York, not only are we still on pause, which means lockdown, but we also have a curfew of 8 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning. So this is another added stress for us. We go into phase 1 June 8th, but I believe we're on curfew also for a few more days. So this has been some weeks. So why don't we begin with doing our usual centering exercise? And I'm going to do it a little bit differently tonight. So what I want us to do is, for those of you that are first joining us, I'd just like to center everyone so that you can really be here and just let everything from the day, just let it go, so that you can give yourself this time for you to be here. So we're going to do a breathing exercise. If you do not like to do the breathing and you rather focus on something else, you could pick a word like love or peace or presence or present, be here now. If you'd like to join us in the breathing, you can close your eyes or not. And we're going to do an inhale for 4 through the nose, and then an exhale for 8 through the mouth. And I will guide you through that. So let's start with an inhale through the nose for 2, 3, 4, and exhale through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, inhale through the nose for 2, 3, 4, exhale through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we'll do one more. Inhale through your nose for 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I want to say how grateful I am that all of you are here. And you may want to set an intention for what you would like to get out of the next hour or so. Perhaps you want to share. Perhaps you want to learn some new coping techniques. Perhaps you just want to get away from where you've been today and you just want to connect with other people, and that's okay too. So if your eyes were closed, you can come back to the room. If you were focusing on a word, come back. So again, I welcome you all here. It's just been some week. It was a week that really brought out the worst in a few, and I think the best in many. And that was my thought today when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight and what I can share and what so many of us have gone through. And if we think about that, it has brought out the worst in a few, but the best in many. And it has brought out the best in so many more than it has brought out the worst. And so, when I thought about the word coping, what is coping, right? Coping is having to deal with situations. It's interesting because the word is also used, coping, in architecture. And from what my understanding is, it actually refers to a layer that's put on brick and that has a tilt to it so water and things can slide off of it. And when I thought about that in terms of what we're dealing with, how do we cope? How do we deal? How do we let things slide off of us? And so I thought what we would do tonight is I would talk a little bit about my experience of the week, what I found people dealing with, what was on their minds when I was working with people in discussions. And I had my own experience, and I thought about how I could be able to share some tools with you in terms of coping, and then spend some time hearing from you. I'd like to hear about what your experience has been, and what you found helpful in terms of your coping mechanisms. Now, the term coping mechanisms, what is that? We use that a lot in psychology. Coping mechanism, it is, I'm going to use the simplest definition. It's really just about the way we deal with certain events. Usually we refer to that as when a child is dealing with certain things, or an adolescent, we develop ways in which we deal with the situation, in which we cope with a situation. And what I find for many of us, that we develop coping mechanisms that are useful at the time when we're young, and then problems occur when we're still using those same coping mechanisms later in our life, but they're no longer useful, or they no longer apply. So, you might go through your time and think about what are some of the ways that you're coping, that you've coped, that really worked really well, and what some other ones that maybe you want to change a little bit. So I found myself this week, really without even realizing, using a method that I had developed a couple of months ago. Some of you may remember this. That was the SNAP method. And I'm going to get into what that is and how to use it in a little bit. But I want to talk about something that occurred with myself on a call that I was on, and how I realized that I was actually using that, and it helped me to cope. So on Saturday night, I was on a call with friends, and it was a rough day just because of all the events that are going on. And I was using the call in lots of different ways. The first part of the call was just going to be, we were going to be learning about how to actually look good on camera. And we had somebody who specializes this talk, and she's an expert, and it was really fun, and it was great. And then the conversation went on and on and on, and it was really good. And at one point, because of some things that had happened on the call, where people were becoming aware of some of the violence that was happening, and the looting and the unrest that was going on in certain cities, some people had to get off the call because they were in all different places. And I found myself suddenly going from really in a good place to inside actually kind of freaking out. I was starting to get really agitated and feeling like, wait, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? I'm on a call talking about how to look good on camera. I need to be out there helping people and doing things. And I became in one, in 10 seconds, I was triggered. I was triggered by certain things that were said on the call about what people were dealing with in their cities. And the reality came back to me, and I found myself not knowing what to do. And so I stopped and said, all right. And I talked to myself, and I said, Susan, what's happening? Why are you starting to have this agitation and freak out? What's going on? And I realized that I went from being in this really great state where I wasn't thinking about what was happening, and I was able to focus, and it felt like a really good escape and a good relief, to it becoming really clear about what was going on around us. And then it shifted, and I felt like I was not happy with what I was doing. And so I realized this felt strange to me. I should be doing something. I didn't like what I was doing. I need to be helping. And so I stopped, and I thought, all right, what can I do about this now? Because really what I needed to do was attend to myself, because I was in freak out mode inside. I was literally I was not feeling great. And I said, all right, so what do I need to do for this? So because I felt really safe on the call with the people that were on the call, I was able to share it. And I said, wait a second, guys, I need to say something. And I said it. And I just expressed what I was feeling. And I said, because I think I need to talk about what's happening right now, because I'm no longer able to kind of escape, because the things had escalated what was happening in different cities around the country. And so what I realized, in just being able to articulate that and say that out loud, what I was experiencing actually brought me back to a calmer place. And we ended up having a discussion. And that was, in that moment, my coping mechanism. That was the way that I coped. And it worked. It was really good. And when I looked back on it, what did I do in that moment when I was almost in panic mode, I was able to think about what was I experiencing, and if I relate it to the SNAP method, it's SNAP, SNAP, and it stands for stop, think about what you're feeling and experiencing, and name it, accept it. I really didn't judge myself, because sometimes we get into judging ourselves and those voices come into our heads. When we acknowledge what we're feeling, those voices sometimes will say, why are you feeling that? Oh, that's so stupid. Well, that's ridiculous. That didn't happen for me. Sometimes it does. It didn't. I just accepted how I was feeling, and then I made a plan. And my plan was to actually share it with the group in this case. If I was on another call and that happened with different people, I may not have felt as safe, or it might not have been appropriate, and I might have come up with a different plan. So I want to talk about, again, just reinforce this SNAP method. And why I love it so much, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback, is because the word SNAP is used in so many ways, right? So if you want to remember that this method and this tool and this technique, you can just snap your fingers and remind yourself. And I had people telling me that they were doing that recently, like they snapped and then remembered what to do. We want to snap out of it, right? Sometimes we're in a really bad spot or reacting to something. We want to snap out of it. You can remember to use it that way. Or you want to prevent yourself from, or the person from snapping, right? And we can use this with ourselves or in relationship with other people. The other thing, so some of the things that I have heard that people were experiencing this week was similar to what I experienced that night on the call, and I'd like to share that a little bit more. What happened for me was I went from being okay to this extreme, I need to be doing something, but not knowing what to do. And I've heard that in different, and I've experienced that in different variations of that throughout the week, of wanting to help, of wanting to do more. And throughout the week, I've also heard people talk about this, that they experienced feeling like, what can they do? Or they weren't doing enough. And they were very frustrated and feeling depressed and not really knowing what to do. And I think what's so important is for you to, if you're experiencing that, is to really stop and think, okay, what makes sense for you in this moment? And it really does come back to, what are you comfortable doing and what works? Because I think that sometimes when we see things done that's not so helpful, or it's causing more harm than good, it's because the person is not really in a good place and they're just reacting instead of responding. So there's been a lot of people that are able to respond. We see this in peaceful protests. They are responding. They're getting together, and there's thousands and thousands of people that are making the decision for themselves that this is how they want to respond to certain things that are happening in our country. And there are people, though, however, that are not doing that, and there's a small few that are reacting, and they're not in a good place. And so what you want to make sure that you do is that you are responding, not just reacting. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that you need to think about, okay, what's your goal? What is the goal? And so maybe you feel like you need to contribute to what has happened about racism, and you want to find a way to make a statement to say, you're not accepting this, you're against what's happening, you want to make a difference. So what is your offering? What can you offer? Maybe it's about something else. Maybe it's about educating people regarding the pandemic. Whatever the issue is, and I know there is an urgency right now to make changes, and it's beautiful, and we're seeing a lot of beautiful things happening in reaction to some absolutely horrific things. So what you want to do is to think, okay, what's my goal? And then whatever that goal is, whether it's just to to show that you stand in solidarity with people. Maybe it's because you really want to make a real change. What is your offering? You can actually use your own talents and the things that you're already doing to make that difference. So for instance, there was a couple of people that I spoke to this week. They're writers. They're going to write, they're going to use their writing skills to write about the issues. There are people that are really good at talking with other people. They're going to talk about the issues. There are people that are in government. They're going to use educating politicians. There are people that are really good at letter writing, campaigning, getting people together, organizing. There's so many different ways, but I think the most important thing is that you do what you feel comfortable doing, and there's no right way. And I heard a lot of people beating themselves up because they felt like they weren't doing enough. And you know, not everybody is going to do the same thing. And whatever contribution that you make that's positive is really great. Maybe you're just having conversations in your household with people that you live with, or with neighbors, or with other people that are constructive conversations. And you're teaching young people how to think and how to deal. Maybe you're just maybe you're taking care of your circle. And that's a great thing, because right now we want to keep the peace and we want people to be in a really good place. Maybe you want to organize people and you want to go out and protest, and you want to do it in a safe way. So maybe you're doing it on your block. Maybe you're doing it in your neighborhood. Maybe you are the type of person that can go and do it on a larger scale. But you need to also think about what you're comfortable with, because if you're uncomfortable and you're not, it's like not in the plane. We talk about this with the oxygen mask, right? You want to make sure you're getting enough oxygen. If you're trying to give other people oxygen before you're putting your own mask on, it's really not going to help. Okay, it's actually going to make things worse, because it ends up that we are in reactive mode, and we don't want to do that. That night on the call, when I suddenly went into feeling like freaked out inside, I had to stop and think about what was going on with me, and then what I needed to do so that I did it in a constructive manner. And so I think that there's so many resources for what you can do. There's really reliable and educated and resources, articles that are telling all different people what they can do for different issues. Again, from letter writing, from talking to politicians, to talking to other people, to just incorporating different policies in your own companies. For those of you that have businesses, it's taking care of your employees, re-looking at your own policies, maybe bringing in other people to talk about the issues of racism. There's lots of different ways to educate people. And I think that it's so important to do this in a positive way that people are comfortable with. I'm just looking to see what else I wanted to talk about here. You know, I'm shifting a little bit. One of the other things that happened about, I guess it's a week and a half ago, I've kind of lost track of time, was the incident. I think most of you are probably familiar with the incident that happened in Central Park, where there was a racist confrontation between a white woman and a black man. And the interesting thing for me that I kind of focused on, I mean, it was an awful thing, and you know, I think it was horrific the way that it happened. I like to look at, well, what good can come out of this, and it's really raising a lot of issues for people. But one of the interesting things for me was that they both had the same last name. And that is something that is really fascinating to me, that these two people ended up at the same time, at the same place, had this, you know, really unbelievably racist confrontation from one person. If you're not familiar with it, you can get in touch with me or look it up. But when I first was reading about it, I was struck by the fact that their last name was Cooper, both of them. Both their last names was Cooper. And, you know, what happened for me was, I think about it in a spiritual manner sometimes. And I know in conversations with people, people use religion and spirituality as also a way to cope with things that happen. And for me, I thought, isn't it interesting that like there's something in the universe that brought these two to kind of raise the issue of racism, and as well that they had the same name. And so when I reflected back, like, what is the meaning? What can we make out of this? And one of the big things that I was struck by is the need for all of us to look at our similarities instead of our differences. These two people have the same last name. But that's so similar, right? And so, maybe I would love to hear what your opinion is on this in terms of putting meaning on the coincidence. And I'm not so sure it was a coincidence, and I want to stress for everybody how important it is for, yes, we may have different political labels on us. We may see things a little bit differently, but for 99% or more of the population, we all have the same goal. I truly believe that for most of us, we all have good intentions. Are there people that don't? Absolutely. But for the majority, I like to think that we all do. And if we could look at our similarities as opposed to the differences, that will help us in terms of keeping peace and really being kind to one another. I want to just take a look and see if there was anything else. Because I'm on my phone, I can't see the time. So let me just see if I can see the time. Great. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at my notes. So just a couple of things in terms of coping. So again, it's about how are we all dealing with this? We go back to the skills that we talked about several weeks ago. You want to make sure that you're eating properly, you're sleeping, you're getting enough sleep, you're getting some exercise. You want to control all of the things that are so important that you can. There's so much of things that we have no control over right now, but you as individuals and for your family and whoever you can influence, you want to make sure that in order to do your best coping, you are attending to your basic needs, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, exercise, and meditating. That all that is the breathing that we did earlier. That's all it is. If you just want to be as in the moment as possible and as conscious and aware of what you're experiencing. And like what I did on the call, when I felt myself internally freaking out, I just went in and I said, all right, take a moment to figure out what is happening. You can use the SNAP method as a coping strategy and figure out what it is that you need right now. And that can change. Okay, so, and allow yourself and be good to yourself. So I want to open it up to, and Debbie, I don't know if you want to unmute people. I can't really see everybody that's on the call.
They should be able to unmute themselves, but I'll give it a try too.
Great, thank you. So I want to know if there's any comments or questions, and also I would love to hear. So how have you coped this week? Different people. I mean, all of you are in different places, so these stressors that you're dealing with are all different. However, I think this week was more stressful for all of us, regardless. Like some of us are still on lockdown, but in a lot of the states, it opened up, and some of you experienced distress, figuring out how to live life again, and also with what the events that are going on in our society. So I'd love to hear how you find it, how you found it this week, and what was helpful for you.
Hello.
Hi, Earl.
Howdy. What's happening? Well, because I record, I'm a music engineer, as you know, Susan. I woke up in the morning. It was yesterday morning, and decided that I need to record my voice making a statement, and so I did that, and I ran a speaker up on my roof, and basically when the curfew happened at 8 o'clock, I blasted it for about an hour, but I only had one speaker, so I turned it north, south, east, and west every 15 minutes so that it could be heard, at least as far as it can be heard, because I didn't have it as loud as maybe I would like, but you know, I'm trying to consider my neighbors. But it's something that I think everyone should hear. So that was kind of what my coping mechanism definitely was. Yeah, it made me able to kind of, you know, feel better about my contribution because I couldn't go to you know, to the rallies or anything, but it was definitely felt good to be able to do that. And
Do you feel comfortable sharing with us what you said? Like, would you share that?
if I prefer not to right now, I could, but
Okay, that's fine. I
suffice
wanted
it
to give
say
you,
that it's
just in case you. It was
suffice
just
it
in
to say
case
that
you
it's
did. I wanted to give.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's about a half-second lag in two people talking. So
Yeah.
I think, Earl, you wanted to say something.
No, I mean, no. Susan, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead. 'Cause
Earl,
I'll
finish. No. Okay, I'll just say it quickly. I just wanted to give you the platform in case you did, but I also respect your not wanting to. It was more of the offering of using it in case you wanted to make that statement.
Oh,
And I so love what you did, because what you did was that is your offering, your talent. That's what you do. You use your voice, you use your recording. And so that's beautiful that you were able to do that.
thank you. Yes.
It seems for a lot of us that the first question we ask ourselves is, what can we do? And Earl, I think it's terrific that you found something that you could actually do, not think about doing or ponder. There should be a lot of reflection in all of this as well, but actually, you know, doing something I think is very important.
Absolutely.
And anyone can just sort of wave a hand like, enough, Tom, we're tired of hearing you. I've been very blessed in life in a lot of different ways. Relative to all of these circumstances, I no longer have a W-2 or a day job, so I'm pretty flexible with what I can do with my time. And I had the good fortune through meeting a number of friends and people that inspired me and interested me with what they were doing on the philanthropic, community side, and had gotten involved in particular with education, which is not, it on the one hand doesn't fall at all in the quick fix category. On the other hand, I think if you look at a tremendous number of problems and issues and challenges in society, you know, at the end of the day, it's sort of like everything kind of points to a serious improvement in our education system from the earliest years. And I'm working with a variety of people on that. Again, it is not something that's going to change much in the next year, but I've associated myself, been blessed with some interesting people that are doing some things predominantly in the inner city of Detroit. I grew up in suburban Detroit, actually spent a surprising amount of time in the city, and then moved to New York and now live in Nashville. But I needed to find some things to do in Detroit. I felt like I could give back, and quite frankly, some things are me. So I've been really blessed that sort of what can I do came to me, and I'm just trying to get other people inspired to do it, introduce different people with different perspectives around different points of the compass, as I refer to it. So that and physical fitness, just going on walks to clear my head. That's my story.
You know, and Tom, thank you. And you reminded me of something that I didn't talk about, which I usually talk about, and that is being grateful and doing a grateful list and remembering all the things that we have to be grateful for in the midst of in coping. That's a huge coping mechanism in terms of really keying into and remembering, because it was a really horrific week. But just again, this is about when you're off balance, figuring out what you can do, because you can't we can't be helpful when we're not in a good place, right? So it's about how can you be in a good place and being grateful to think about the things within the midst of all the horrible things. There are still things that we can still feel grateful about, and and I think that's important for centering for people to use as well. And so you reminded me of that as you started it with you saying actually that you feel very grateful for all of the things that you've been blessed with, which is really important. And I've talked about that in the past, and it's just helps. It's such a great thing in terms of allowing us to center so that we can go out and make those changes and contribute to doing what we want to do to make those changes. Thank you for sharing that.
Very welcome.
Or was there something else that you had wanted to say? Because I wasn't sure if you had gotten cut off before.
No. I got it off. I tend to let the things that I do most of my speaking for me, which is why I picked the profession that I'm in. So, but anybody else have anything to say? I'm listening.
So great, Hannah, great. Hi.
Hi. Well, I agree with most of everything you said, Susan, well said. And I'm a teacher in inner city in Philadelphia, so we're teaching online. And generally my mode is to keep myself, my immunity up, and to sleep well and to eat well. And I felt in this time, it's always important, but it's most important. So personally, I've sort of upped a little bit of my self-care because I am home, and I like to meditate in my classroom. I work within the school district, but it's Head Start, which I think most of you might know is a federal program for lower income. And it happens to be in my school that it's multicultural, but it's many new immigrants. And so to sort of keep at first I was watching a lot of the news, and then I'm a very sensitive kind of person, so it was really getting to me. So I pretty much stopped that. Occasionally my adult children live in New York, so I'll tune into the governor, Cuomo sometimes. But I've actually started a new practice of waking up, and before I do anything, I just actually sit on my bed and I meditate. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. And, just watching my breath and, going back and forth. And that's been very helpful. And where I live in Philadelphia, until just the last week, it's been, there aren't that many people out. So I've been walking 3 to 4 miles a day, and in between teaching, and that's real. I don't know that I generally do that, but and I have a practice of Tai Chi, which I want to do, but I'm sort of just making myself do it. I get up, I meditate, and then I do the Tai Chi, and just for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we make calls to our students now, like twice a week. And I speak Spanish you know, well enough, and I don't speak Chinese or, you know, the Asian language, but somehow they know enough. But so this week, I'm just piggybacking on what upset me. A bunch of things upset me, but I was having trouble reaching one of the parents, and I just couldn't, you know, it just kept saying, you know, this number is not working now. And then the parent called me back, and he had lost his cell phone cover. You know, he didn't have money to pay for his cell phone. And we have like food places where they can pick up food. And most of my parents, or the parents of my students, work in either restaurants or construction. So anyway, I have the greatest honor to, a lot of the time, to be the first person that my students' parents, first American that they know. And I form very, you know, heartfelt relationships. So they trust me. And so anyway, when I found out that he called me back on another line. Somehow he could see that I called. And so there's a fund, and anyway, I just tried to figure out, and we're going to get, you know, some funding. And, you know, I guess the way I've been coping also is, you know, just trying to be there for my parents, you know, my students. And I do the meditation in our classroom every day, and the children really take to it, especially some special needs children, and I have a few autistic children. And but I've been shy to do it, like on the video somehow. But when I went, because I make videos every week of me reading stories and doing laughter yoga and stuff, and I'm outgoing, but I have a shyness, so it's been a learning curve. But this week I said, I'm just not going to go read a story with everything that's going on. And I spoke to a friend before I did it, because, you know, it's sort of, Tom, maybe you know about this too, you know, how much do you say to little children, you know? So I just kept it very general, like, this is a difficult time, you know, because we're not seeing each other, and let's meditate together. And anyway, people were so happy. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, I'm doing, and also Tom, and you know, just being grateful, you know. But it's been very heavy in Philadelphia. You know,
Yeah.
as in,
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's definitely, you know, especially for kids and young children, and really adolescents, in terms of how do we talk about these issues, you know. And in order to talk to your kids, whether they're students, I teach community college, and I have young people, and I spent the first half hour just opening it up to, you know, asking people how they're doing, because that's really what's most important. And one of the things that I started doing last year, even to deal with some of these issues, and because part of what's happening in our society, well, it's been happening for a long time, but one of the problems, there's lots of problems, but one of the issues is that people have misconceptions about groups and about people. And there's biases, and there's prejudices, and there's stereotypes. And one of the things that I do, and I have lots of different exercises with my classes that we do, is about raising people's awareness about those stereotypes, about what they're experiencing, but also I give up people the opportunity to break those myths and assumptions. So I create a really interesting space in my classroom where I'm actually shocked at some of the misconceptions that people have about other groups, whether it's based on race and religion. But, and this is in Brooklyn, New York, but I use it, and I'm not judgmental. It's just surprising and shocking that when I was doing this live in 2019, that people really had certain beliefs that were so just really unbelievable. And so I was using that as a way to educate each other and for them to realize that these are myths and they're not true, right? And I gave everybody the opportunity to kind of break the myths and assumptions that people have about their groups, and then they learned. And another way that I coped this week was to have lots of conversations with people about what we can do going forward to reduce and address the issue of racism. And how do we do that in terms of bringing people together, having conversations, educating, looking at that because that's what I do, right? I love talking to people. I love bringing people together. And so I spent a lot of time this week talking to people in different settings on making plans to be able to do that going forward. So that's another thing, but because it's so important, right? That we challenge ourselves and have those conversations with people, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And that's really important too, to like open up in a way that's really safe. And I spent some time thinking and being in conversations with people about how we're going to do that going forward to create those spaces.
I couldn't agree more with the importance of getting people together, whether it's one-on-one, small group, whatever, where they can really just be themselves. And interestingly enough, and not all parents agree with me relative to that question of when are they old enough to handle something. And if anything, I push hard / err on the side of don't underestimate what they can handle, and don't underestimate the importance that if they start very young being exposed to things, even if they aren't Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, that it will benefit them, whether it's going to see Holocaust survivors, they're Jewish, my kids, and just my her older brother actually went to, before it was closed for 3 different reasons, including a tornado, in Canova, but is 35 to 40% African-American public school here in Nashville. And it's just been a wonderful experience for him. So I'm on the side of get people knowing each other, when they're young, and it's just, they don't look at it the same way we might look at it. There's just essentially no awkwardness with these kids.
Tom, and I think you're bringing up a great point. Maybe Debbie, if you're on, you can talk to this too. It's so important that we talk to people who are older, who have really survived and have seen so many things from a historical perspective, and who have lived so much, and talk to them about, because there's so much wisdom in our culture. We don't look to our older generations enough in terms of utilizing their knowledge and experience. We tend to undervalue them in general. Many of us do, so I'm not talking about people on this call, but as a culture in America, we tend to not value. We look at the way that we treat our senior citizens in terms of people that need to be in nursing homes or in rehabs, right? We don't put money in there. That's a whole nother conversation, but you can see the way in our society that older people are generally treated. And this is the time when really we have an opportunity to shift that a little bit, because we need to be talking to older people. And so, Debbie, I don't know if you're on and you want to speak to that as well, because I know that's something that you are very dedicated to.
Yeah, I'm on. I've been listening. And, you know, I think that what you said, Tom, is spot on. I think that it's important that we all come out of we tend to make ourselves have very tiny comfort zones. And, you know, if we can move out of that and branch out as far as possible, that's great. You know, we have my mother-in-law who's 93, who's living with us, and I've been an aging specialist for, I don't know, since the 90s. And it's very different when you walk the talk, you know, and I can say that my mother-in-law is the least phased out of all of us by a lot of this. You know, she's lived through a lot and she's able to help guide, you know, my kids, at least, I think, in a way that is comforting. And it's really invaluable. I think that you're right. We don't use our most natural, precious resources, which is ourselves and our older generations. But that's a whole nother discussion. But I think you're spot on, Tom, with what you said.
Thanks, Debbie. And Debbie, you have some young kids in your household. What's it been like? And if you want to share in terms of your coping and their coping and conversations that you've had with the boys.
Well, I have 2 teenagers in the house, and this is not easy for teenagers. You know, first of all, to be in the house with, we've been really strictly keeping the quarantine because we have my mother-in-law who's older, who's living with us. We're not taking any chances. And if you're 14 and 15, the last people you want to be in a house with for like 12 weeks are your parents. You know, like that's just the age where that's not where they're wanting to be. But they're handling it pretty well. It's obviously, you know, every day's different. But I will tell you that my mother-in-law is the one that I think grounds them because she's lived through
That's great.
bad times. And so she's able to ground them. And the way she does it is they play board games with her. They take her for a walk. She makes it so that they have to be grounded with some form of normalcy every day. And that's helpful to them. So I don't think it has to be a grandparent, but that's the one thing I think that's helped them a lot.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Irene, did you want to share something?
Yeah, it's probably more of a question or looking for some advice. Actually, two questions, but I'll start with this one. So this is all incredibly stressful, what's going on in the world. And I mean, number one, you know, I have this feeling of like, here I am in my suburban home. I don't hear any sirens. I don't hear any glass breaking. I don't have to, you know, come in contact with people. I have a job. I'm fine. But I know all these things are happening in the world, and it is in fact stressful. And recently I had, you know, someone that I'm close to who was upset with me for something that, you know, to me seemed like petty and unfair. And I can't get it out of my mind. And it's so upsetting to me to think about these small things when it feels like the world is on fire. So I just kind of feel like I'm torn in so many different directions right now with like super minor stuff and things that just feel like apocalyptic. You know, like I cannot believe that we're living in this country in this situation the way it is right now. And unfortunately, you know, some of these underlying issues that have been here for centuries. So I don't know what the question is, but maybe coping approach would help.
I apologize. I don't know if it's my reception or yours, but if somebody, can you just repeat a part of it? Because I missed a part of it in there, what you were saying. And again, I can't tell if it was mine or it's your connection is bad. Were other people, Debbie, were you able to hear her clearly?
Yes.
All right.
If you'd like, I'll paraphrase, and Irene, tell me if I got it right.
Yeah, because I can hear you clearly, but for some reason she's not coming in as clear on my phone, so that would be helpful.
I actually feel similarly to Irene. You know, we're in the suburbs and we don't hear the sirens. We don't see a lot of what people are seeing, and it's on the television, or we don't have to turn the television on. It feels distant. How do
Okay.
we cope with that? How do we cope with, we know the world is essentially on fire, but how do we cope with it? You know,
So,
separated.
right.
And another part was, you know, people say things that feel petty, but they feel that would sound petty maybe before, but right now they're very inflammatory. It feels like much more. Did I get that right, Irene?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, interpersonal things that would have been annoying before that aren't necessarily about the situation, but just like even having to think about those things just seem even more petty and small, and makes me feel guilty for even having them in my, just I can't get them out, you know, in the middle of all.
So I think that's a great question in terms of, you know, you're feeling like you're a little bit out of it. You're not right in it. But I think I would ask you, so what is the experience for you that is most problematic? So yes, there might be some similarity between you and Debbie, but like for you, Irene, what is the issue for you that you're experiencing? Like what's the challenge for you? And, you know, and you can certainly share it, or, you know, we could talk offline, but one of the things to think about, because even when there's similarities, we all experience it differently in terms of our individual triggers and how we process things. So what you and Debbie, although the situation is the same, similar in terms of you're not hearing the sirens directly, but when you say, how can I deal with the world, what's happening there? For me, it's what the question would be, so what are you actually feeling in the moment? And that moment can change. So what you might be feeling in the morning might be very different than what you're feeling an hour later. Or like when you're saying what seemed like a little annoyance before becomes a ginormous annoyance now, or to trigger. Well, I would say stay in the moment and go, what is it that I'm actually experiencing? So for instance, if I would just make this up, you know, maybe like the like what I experienced that night on what I described on the call. For me, it was, I didn't know what to do. Like I wanted to be able to do something, and it was like, what can I do? And so mine came from like frustration and really not being in control, right? Like not being powerless to be able to witness that there are all these things going on, and I'm powerless. And then to go, okay, so I'm feeling out of control and powerless. What is in my control? Well, in that moment, what was in my control was being able to share my experience with other people. So I think that it comes down to figuring out and just checking in with your sleep, saying, what is it that I'm experiencing right now? And go a little deeper. And then say, what's underneath that? What is underneath that? And then figure it out. And again, and then say, okay, so that's what I'm experiencing. Maybe it's sadness. Maybe it's, you know, if you're experiencing sadness, all right, what do I need to do? Maybe I need to get a hug from somebody. Maybe I'm not around people, I'm alone. Maybe I need to give myself a hug. Maybe I need to get on the phone with someone who I was supportive. You know, it really depends on what you are experiencing in that moment, and then figuring out what you need. Maybe it's, you feel like, oh my God, this is happening out there. I'm privileged. I'm not experiencing it. What can I do to help? And then you figure out, all right, in this moment in time, here's what I can do. I can donate money. I can go give blood. I can call up my legislator. I can reevaluate. Wait, what are my business practices? How am I dealing with racism? Are my practices fair? Do I help my employees to be aware of the issues? You know, so it's really, I think, connected to figuring out what your challenge is in the moment, what your experience is, what is making it difficult, and then figuring out a plan to deal with that.
Thank you for that. If you don't mind, I'm just going to ask one more thing.
Oh, please do.
I'm finding that there's such a spectrum of what people are comfortable with in terms of social distancing right now. And a lot of different opinions, and it's creating, discomfort in relationships. Kind of feeling like, you're being a hypochondriac, you're over the top, or, you're being careless. I can't believe you're doing that. I'm just finding that there's this spectrum, and especially being here in New York, it's been hard because we have been hit very, very hard. It's not like, I think, in other places in the world where people, similar thing, are seeing on the news, like, oh my God, can you imagine what happened in New York? It happened here. So it does hit very close to home. So I don't even know how to handle those differences and feelings about what's appropriate and what isn't right now. People are tired.
And I think, I'm experiencing that. A lot of us, wherever you live, everybody's experiencing that. We're experiencing that more so in New York. So I think a couple of things that I found helpful for people and for myself. So it's about being very clear for yourself what you need. And so when you talk about, like, let's say it's somebody that you're in a relationship with, to try to, because again, it comes down to not being so reactive and responding, so that you have to take care of yourself, because it's really frustrating somebody else, like, that you're close to, you might be sharing the same space with, or you talk to a friend, let's say they're not wearing a mask, right? And like, you believe in masks, and so have a conversation, but you have to be centered. So it can't be with anger, because that, if you're trying to convince them, they're not going to hear you. They don't want to be convinced. So you want to say, okay, well, again, what is it that I'm experiencing? And it's about sharing your experience. So, like, for example, you might want to say, whoever that you're in conversation with, for me, I'm worried about, I don't want to get the virus. I read the latest scientific information, and what it says is that if you wear a mask, you're able to protect the other person, because I may have it and not know it and be asymptomatic, and I want to protect myself. I want to protect you by wearing the mask. And if they go, well, you're crazy, say, okay, so what are you basing that on? Like, what does that mean that I'm crazy? I just gave you the reason. So tell me a little bit about what you're basing your decision on. Now, it may be somebody that can't get into that conversation. Like, there might be people in your life that actually can't have those conversations. And so you might need to know that. And then you have to find a way to just protect yourself. And there are other people that
Bye, Susan. Susan, you there?
What the heck happened?
She's still here, but she'll be able to.
Oh, you're on. I think she's on mute.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Not on mute.
Susan, you there?
She's on her phone. So hold on.
She might have gotten the curfew alert.
Here we go. I think
That's really funny.
she's using her phone, so something might have happened with her phone, and she'll be able to pop back on, because I see
So
that
weird.
she's still there.
She's still talking.
But Irene, is she still talking?
I think so.
Irene, I think that what she was saying is so true. I really agree with her. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's you do have to get yourself grounded with it and just know your comfort zone with it. It has to come from you, and getting comfortable with where you are with what you're feeling with it. Is she back?
Trying to be.
She's still talking, but she's still, you don't hear her.
She knows that she's muted, or that she is on her own muted. But anyway, I don't want to speak for Susan, but I don't know if that's helpful at all. Yes, thanks. I saw that.
Should we give her a message, or?
Yeah, I'm going to send her one.
She was just informed.
Yeah.
Oh, so she didn't know that we couldn't hear her. So she's not on mute on our end. She is on her end.
Or a system.
Yeah, she'll pop back up.
Only my sister.
But since we can't hear her, I would say one thing relative to, comfort and sanity is, I think it's important to pay attention to what's going on. I think one can overdo it in terms of just sitting transfixed in front of a television. And it just really can be very wearing and, to my psyche at least, unhealthy, to be extreme.
She's looking how to unmute it. I better not say anything because if I talk, Susan's gonna say, I missed what you have to say.
Sorry, Susan is not muted on this end.
So it's a system flaw.
It's her cell phone. She has to unmute herself. It's on her end.
Susan, where are you?
I just want to hop in for Susan.
Or else someone had to
Say.
something different than talk.
That's so funny.
You know, this is just a product of these times. It's very difficult to even get a good audio in a lot of places, or good cell phone connection. So this is just, we have to roll with it.
Yeah, every system is stressed, given that
Exactly.
talking person to person, everyone is going through some digital electronics of some sort.
Susan, update your phone. Let's go. Get a real one.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, I
Something,
just saw
you
her.
know what happened? Something must have happened when the emergency alert came in, and I closed it. Something happened when I did that.
What alert
Okay.
did you get?
Yeah,
That
the curfew alert.
What?
I got one too.
So when I closed it,
Right.
I might have hit something on the phone. Again, I'm not okay. So you can all hear me.
Yes.
Very well.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that. So I don't even know when you stopped hearing me, Irene, and everybody. Do you remember? Does anybody remember the last thing I said? Because I was addressing her question.
You're talking about coping with if people are saying things to you, and they're saying things that they're not wearing a mask, or they're saying, who cares? If you're not able to get into a conversation with that person, that's where
Right. Thanks. So it may be just knowing that person. Like, there are some people I know would never try to get into a conversation with, but there are other people, if I'm careful the way that I word it, you might want to talk about it's helpful to talk about your experience and what happens to you with it. And so that, for me, like Irene, like if you said to somebody, I am uncomfortable that you're not wearing a mask because from what I've read, the latest research, it's saying that you might have the virus, you're not symptomatic, and so it raises my anxiety level being near you without you wearing a mask because I feel like I'm not protected. And you see what they say and see what their response is. And if there's somebody who are level-headed and can deal with that, they might hear it differently if you're calmly talking about your own experience. And that's why you need to first calm yourself down and figure out what you need so that you can then be in conversation. Because when we blame and say, you better do this, people shut down. They can't hear us. So if we talk about ourselves and what we're experiencing and what our need is, like, I need you to help me. If you love me or if you care about me, can you help me with this? This is what's happening. With some people, and it's work. We got to work at it. But that's. I hope that's helpful for you. But because and people are seeing it really different. It was very frustrating. I went for a walk this morning, I would say 75% of the people that I saw were not wearing masks or were wearing them on their chin. I live in an apartment building. I had to call the maintenance department and tell them to please have their maintenance people wear masks. They were cleaning the building without wearing masks on. I was like, you know, somebody yelled at me because I had to go in an elevator, and I won't go in an elevator with people right now because it's a really tiny elevator. I'll wait. And so I knew this other person that was I was there first. There was a person that came after me, but I know him, and I knew that he would get angry if I told him not to go in the elevator with me. So I waited, and I let him go first and let him take his elevator by himself. And then he looked at me and he goes, you know, there could be 2 people in the elevator. And I go, it's okay. I'm going to wait. Thank you very much. And he got mad at me for having my opinion. It was okay. I just knew what was important to me. And he was in a bad place, but I was not going to let that affect me. I took care of myself and did what I needed to do for me. And it wasn't about him. You know, it was just about me. Like, I needed to do this for me. But because I was in a good place, I didn't have to react to him because I did what I needed to do in my mind to feel okay. So Irene, was that helpful? You're muted. Now you're muted. I see the red thing. Thanks.
Irene?
Now?
Now you're good. You're good now.
Yeah, no, I think that is helpful. I think, you know, putting yourself in a good place and not being like a wreck at that moment, like, filled with anger or fear, that's important. And also, you know, think about what you said about, you know, as the use for mask. Everybody knows these things. It's just they're choosing not to pay attention to it. And so that I don't think is effective. I think it sounds condescending, but the part where you said it raises my anxiety level.
Right.
You're doing this and not protecting me. I think that takes to like a personal, you know, do we care about each other level. So that
Right.
I think is totally different. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And also, I couldn't see everybody on the call. I don't know when you came on, but really using the SNAP method, I find, you know, will help because it's the stop, it's the name, you know, really going deep within yourself. Like, what am I experiencing right now? And then getting to that, and then just accepting how you feel, and then make a plan. Like, I'm really frustrated. Like, you know, I have to do this. I live with my daughter when she doesn't do her chores. Of course, I want to go in there and say, you know, it's making me crazy, but I have to stop and go, wait a second, what am I experiencing? Not react on it, and then make a plan where it's going to lead to the outcome I want. And I think that's key because when, you know, we know what we want, but we don't know how to get there sometimes. And it's about, and then it backfires because we try to get other people to do things, but we're not really smart sometimes about, like, we have to stop and say, well, wait a second, is what I'm about to do really going to get the outcome that I'm looking for? And it doesn't come from it just because we're reacting and not thinking it through. Like, we know what we want, but we have to stop and say, well, wait a second, if I really say this to this person, what's their reaction going to be? And so it's taking the time to plan it out.
Makes a lot of sense.
Hello?
Yes.
You know,
Sandy?
watching it, I haven't been watching the news. I've been busy. But I'm watching the news right now. And, you know, Susan, you know, working for the police department, being retired. Every now that I live in suburban area, but every police department in every state should be retrained, should go back and be retrained and have feelings for every family member. I mean, people have lives. I mean, I'm watching this. They have no regard for people's lives. How would you like it if this was your family member? I'm sick. They have no care in the world for these people. I'm watching these cops right now. I haven't watched it because I haven't been home.
Right, Sandy, so I don't want to get too political, but I think, you know, what's happening is also, like, if it's agitating you, I think, like what Irene said and some other people said, you want to really, like, be careful, like, not to watch too much, but you want to watch enough to be
No,
informed.
but they need to go back and be retrained.
And I think, right, and I think what you're saying is like, you have good ideas. You were in it, in parts of it, and you could like write up a recommendation about, here was my experience, here's what I'm seeing, and here's what I think. And you can talk to like your local police department. You can write a letter to legislators because they are looking at that. And I think that you have a great perspective in terms of, here's what I think. I think one of the things that we all need to be careful of, and I actually got into a very long conversation the other night with a friend who made some really unbelievable statements about, he said, all blank blanks and all blank blanks. And I had to breathe, and I had to really, because I really wanted to, kind of scream. And I just thought, all right, what do I want to say to him? And one of the things that I needed to focus on was, whenever we say all, we know right there that that's not useful. So, like, not all cops are doing that, and not all anybody's. I just want to make that right.
It's not everybody.
Right. It's not all. But what happens is you didn't mean it, but because you were in like reactive mode, because what you're seeing,
I'm not
really
saying everybody, but they have to go back. Some people are.
Yes.
Some people take the job just for some people take the job for the medical. Some people take the job just for the power. Okay, I see it. Some people just take for the power, but that's not how you do it. You take it. You take it for, you want to help the public. But you have to help everybody. Everybody. And that's what you have to take that job for, is to help everybody in the community, no matter who you are. And that's what that job is for. Listen, I should know. And that's what makes you, that's sick. Listen, I have an African-American family on the block. They are the most wonderful people you ever want to meet. Okay? And everyone talks to them, and we all know, we all help each other. And that's what they're there for. Okay? And they work for the police department. Okay? And that's what they do. And they're wonderful people, and we help each other. And they babysit white kids. They're unbelievable. And like, listen, we don't have this here. There's like no protesting here. It's like quiet as could be in this area. It's really bad.
So I appreciate, your passion and your good recommendations. And so I think it's great because since you did work for them, you're in you have a really great perspective, and you can add a lot to the conversation. And so, do that, like go talk to your local police station, or write a letter about what your experience was and the retraining that you think that needs to happen. So take that passion and channel it. I think that's great.
Susan, you spoke earlier about looking at our similarities as opposed to our differences, and what I realized is a part of how I grew up, but I never really think about it consciously. But all the schools, like at least as far as back as 4th grade that I can remember, there was always a variety of kids in my classes. Like there was always black, white, Asian, like it was always a mixture all the time. So then I was used to that environment just from 4th grade on. And then I made different friends, like my friend Ken Phai, he's Chinese, and I would go by his house as a teenager, and then I would see, and his mom never learned English, so she only spoke Chinese, but as she was, like when he came in the house, like she was screaming on him in Chinese, and then I'm looking at the dynamics and going, wow, that's exactly what my mother does to me. But I don't know what she's saying, but I know that she's giving him the business. And then my friend Andrew, who is Italian families, they like talk very loud, like to each other. But and you can tell that like they're not arguing, they're not like, they don't hate each other, but they just talk loud. And so, but you see the dynamics, and it's like, you understand that that's not different than what happens at your place. And so there's, to go along with that commonality, there's a lot of commonalities, but when you're not, even like if I never had gone to their homes or became friends with them and got to see that dynamic just from the inside, like I would never realize how similar we are. And so it's just interesting. It's funny. But I think like, those shows with wife swap, I think that what they should do is have like young kids swap and live in a different crib.
I
for
think
like,
it's great.
like a week or something, like a weekend even. Like, I think so, because if you do that, you'd be amazed at how people would be like, yo, you know what? They would come back to their friends and be like, yo, I was at this dude's crib, and yo, they was screaming at each other just like they do in my house. Like, it was wild. Like it's amazing, and I think it just came to me as I'm on this call that that's something they should try. I mean, because I'm telling you, it's just,
Wait, Earl, that's funny.
so
Earl
neat.
said that because when I was a kid, they had a Chinese family and they were fighting, but the curse words were in English, but everything else was in Chinese.
Oh no.
Yes, that was. It was so funny. you
Earl,
said that.
I love that idea, Earl. I love that idea. That is
I
fantastic.
think
And
it's
you know
great.
what? It was born here. We're gonna see it happen when the
That was great.
pandemic lifts, and we can. It's interesting because it's like, yeah, people go to other countries to have that immersion experience. They could just go to a neighbor's house, right?
Yep.
From a different culture. Debbie, I think we've got something going on here. We're
That's
gonna have
great.
to have this happen.
Earl, you're a genius. I love it.
Love
That's great, Earl.
I'm sure we can find kids who would volunteer to go somewhere else besides their own home.
Yeah, I think they
Oh my
would.
God, that's so funny.
Volunteer their
I can see it's the new summer camp, right? So when you're on vacation, you go to summer camp, and then they come back and they go, "Yep, wasn't much different there either. We thought it was gonna be, but it was the same thing as here." Yeah, I love it, Earl. But
Exactly.
that is such a great point. I mean, and I think it is something we should explore. But what you're saying is, when we don't know, we tend to focus on the superficial differences, right? So, men and women look differently. Whites and black look differently. We see skin color different. We see, Asian and white and Jewish and Catholic and whatever. We associate it to different things. Blonde versus brunettes, with straight hair versus curly hair. And when we focus on those things, we don't get to see the similarities. So what you're saying is just so awesome in terms of reflecting back how for you got to see the similarities, so you don't see, so it wipes the differences away. And the more conversations and the more things like that we have, that will add to it and break those myths and assumptions about people. Yeah,
That
Absolutely.
was good.
great. So Debbie, is Joel around? Does he want to make an appearance, or is he not there?
He's actually on a call right now. He's on his
Okay.
in another room. That's why I'm in this room. So
Okay.
no Joel tonight. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Just tell him we're disappointed. It's Wednesday. We need a Joel. Okay.
I'll tell him
Then-
we're disappointed. He's used to hearing that from me. I say that facetiously. I say that facetiously.
All right. So now, you know what? Instead of saying that, tell him we look forward for his appearance next week. How's that?
That's much
Of
better.
course.
I look forward to seeing him next week.
He loves seeing you guys and everybody here. So
Are there any other comments or questions, or anybody want to add anything? I know there are some people on here that have young children. They may not want to talk, but we really need to think again just about the theme about young children, and they're getting the messages all the time. And it's like, I think one of the most important things, if I could just add, is that we listen to them and give them the opportunity to talk. And sometimes it's hard for us to actually just listen. And because we want to give them advice, we want to take away their pain. We as parents never want to see our kids, and we talked about this last time, we don't want to see our kids suffering or having these difficult feelings, but they're going to have these difficult feelings right now. And so if you could just pay attention to yourself and allow them to talk. And that's the biggest thing that I had to learn as a parent, is to kind of remind myself to stop talking and just to listen, because I think we don't listen enough. We think we do, but we're really not listening. So if I could say one takeaway from here for parents is to allow our kids to talk and just give them the space. like sit with the silence and always check in with them and say, so what's going on? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And if they say, I don't want to talk right now, okay, fine, allow them, and then check back with them at another time. But like keep going back and saying, hey, just check in what you're doing, how you feeling, and then, you know, what you're thinking about, and then listen and try not to jump in and try not to give too much information or try to tell them how to feel, and just sit with it, even if it's uncomfortable, because that's what they need. Sometimes they just need us to listen and be there.
I would just love to thank everyone that participated this evening in helping get me to a better place, hearing the various comments and thoughts, and with your choreography of overseeing this, Susan. Thank you very much for running a good show. And I know several of you I've met on other occasions here in the Zoom rooms. And for those that I haven't, it's really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you to everyone. Last chance for comments. Otherwise, I think we will end. Anyone else have anything that they want to add? Melvin, did you want to add anything?
No, not really. I just want to, I can't introduce myself though. I'm actually a court officer. I've been an officer for about 26 years. So I do have a lot of experience in everything you guys are talking about. And, I definitely keep track of everything that's going on as far as social media and this, that, and the third, and as far as racism and such, and what's happening right now in the world. So I would love to comment. Probably next time I will. This time I just
That's
wanted to get a
great.
feel for the group and see what was going on. So
Oh, good.
thank you for
Thanks so much
allowing
for
me.
coming. Thanks so much for coming, Melvin. That's great. Thank you. And
Cool.
thank you, everyone,
Thank you, Susan.
for
And
being here. And I look forward to seeing everyone. Have a great and safe and peaceful week. And I hope we'll find us in better shape next week. Okay.